Scanning your artwork and cleaning it up is a very boring and tedious part of creating comic books, but it's necessary, much like taking care of your parking tickets. Happy Friday. So I think this goes without saying that before you scan your pages, you should probably erase it, clean it up from some unwanted pencil marks that you don't want to get scanned. And it's a pretty dirty page, especially this one, because the lead I was using was pretty soft, resulting in quite a few stray lines. So yeah, you want to just erase it as cleanly as you can. Although sometimes I kind of like seeing a bit of the pencils, the stray pencils add a bit of, it adds a bit of an organic feel to the art. So after you erase it, you're gonna get a lot of eraser shavings. So I got one of these. It works sometimes. So when you do get it going, sometimes it won't turn off. The next stage is scanning it. So I use this scanner called the PlusTech Optic Slim 1180. I believe it used to be called Mustech. Years ago when I first started drawing comic books and I started scanning my own work, finding an affordable scanner is actually pretty expensive, and a lot of the options are ranging in the few $1,000s. I'm not talking like a couple grand, where I'm talking $4,000, something like that. Anyways, so years ago I found this scanner called Mustech. I believe I found it from reading Scott McDaniel's blog at the time. I was such a huge fan of his Nightwing run, and he would share a lot of his process for creating comic books. Oh yeah, the one thing about this scanner, the top that comes down to cover the artwork, it doesn't seem to have enough weight. So when I'm scanning it, if there's a bit of a lift on the page from, let's say, moisture or my sweaty hands, that lift makes that part of the scan a little bit blurry. So I put a book on top of it to ensure that it's completely flat. I feel like it's almost embarrassing that I'm using this beautiful book as a way to help me scan my pages, but it gives me something to always look at, you know? So it's always on my desk, and I love Gil Kane's works. Highly recommend this for more than just helping you scan pages. So depending on this scanner that you use, this one comes with its own scanning application, which I've linked with Photoshop. Typically, I scan in 600 DPI. It's a bit overkill for most print jobs. Print can really only do 300 DPI, but I'll scan in 600 just to give it that extra resolution. And just to save some room on your hard drive, I'll scan it in grayscale. Once it's scanned, it's going to show up in Photoshop, and as you can see, it's quite dirty. You know, you have all these little pencil marks. There's still some stuff there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but trust me, it's there. You know, some of the black lines aren't quite as black. Some of the pencil lines that are a little bit darker are still showing up. So the first step, once I scan this page, is I'll copy and paste it into a print template. You can see the guides here. This is where the bleeds are of the book. And then I'm just gonna shrink it to the appropriate size of the page. So even though this is a splash page, I wanna make like a very confined, restricted look by keeping it within these panel borders, especially the live art section. Okay, I think that looks good. The first thing I do is in Photoshop, I'll create a new layer using levels. What I typically do first is I click on this exclamation mark. And I'll bring the blacks a little bit closer to the right and making them darker so you can see it before, you can see it after. And then I'll take the lightest area and pull it to the left, making it a little bit brighter. I'm sure that's a little bit more visible. And I'll take the midtones and I'll bring it again closer to the left to make it lighter, right? So as you can see, it's a little bit cleaner. So here's before, after, before, after. It's very subtle. It's hard for the camera to pick it up. But again, here's an example of before, after, before, after. So it's a little bit cleaner, but you know, once you really zoom in, you can see that there's still a lot of grit and paper, pencil marks that, you know, you don't really want to see because it's going to look a little bit rough. Here's a perfect example. You can see right here along where the hair is, there's some smudgy inks there. So what I'll do is there's this tool in Photoshop called Dodge and Burn. The Dodge tool, what it does is it lifts all of the dark areas and makes it lighter. This little dark area right here, you use the Dodge tool and I can make that disappear. You know, so again, cleaning it up. Again, here's some dark areas. What it's doing is lifting the darkness and bringing it closer to the light. Unfortunately, it does make some of the darker lines a little bit lighter, but there's something else we're going to do after this to fix that. So I'll go in here and clean up all these things. And you know, you might ask, why not use an eraser tool? Sure, you can do that, but there's a step later on that makes it difficult to do that because then you're going to affect other things that is later down the pipeline. I'll show you later. So anyways, I'll go in and I'll clean up all this stuff. So again, here's a bunch of like little pencil mark, you know, more pencil mark right here. And then magic, it's disappearing. It's like taking that 5 o'clock shadow and shaving it off, you know? It's not going to be perfect. Sometimes you will get bits and pieces. Actually, especially right here, you can see a lot of my pencil marks are still remaining. Come in, clean it up. I don't know if I can get this all without really messing up the black inks. Typically, I don't zoom in that close. You know, I'd say this is a good distance to work from. This process is a lot easier to do when it's just straight up black and white line work. It was a little bit more difficult when I was doing ink wash because it started lifting off some of the light washes that I was doing. So it was a very tedious process at the time. So now that the smudgy parts are cleaned up, some of the dark areas got kind of lifted, right? Like you can see right here, you know, if you zoom in, this part right here, some of the black line work, it has a bit of a gray value. And you know, look, that's fine if that's what you're going for, but I'm trying to go for a more traditional clean line look. And you can sort of see right here where these lines are quite light. Same thing over here. So then what you can do in order to remedy that is use something called a burn tool, which it's the opposite of the dodge tool. It makes the darker area dark. So here's an example. So this line right here, this should be solid black, but I think the ink I was using was running a little bit out of juice. So we're going to use the burn tool to make that darker. Oops, I was still on dodge. So here's the burn tool. So as you can see, it's making it really dark. Now, the only problem with this is that it does make the line work not as smooth. It can look a little bit pixelated. But again, you don't need to do it on everything. Just the important parts that you want to make sure is reading clearly. You know, like these parts right here are a little bit gray, but I'm just going to leave that. That's okay. It's creating some nice value. But there are some parts that I want to darken like these parts right here where her black hair was looking a little bit gray, and it's looking more patchy than creating value. Like, again, I don't know if this is visible, like right here, you know, you can see a bit of patchiness to it. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of this just to darken it up. Same thing with some of this line work. This line work is looking a little faint. Again, not too much, you know, because if you do too much, it tends to give the line quality a bit of a pixelated look. So the name of the game is really subtlety, you know. So I'll zoom out a lot, and what I tend to do is the main focal point, I'll just do a soft dashing of the burn tool in order to make it cleaner. So that's about it. That's the cleanup part. So the next thing I do to make this thing ready for colors is make the line work color ready by making it a floating layer. You see how there's technically colors right there, but you're not really seeing it unless you put this thing to multiply, right? Meaning that anything that's light is transparent to the colors underneath. I worked this way for a long time, but there are issues that you will run into working this way. So what I do here is, again, here's my inks, here are the levels. I put it on a separate layer just because I think it's cleaner and easier to use that way. I'll put it in a folder and I'll group it up, and then I'll duplicate that just because I hate messing something up and not being able to undo it. So that grouped up layers of the line work, the scan line work with the adjustments, I'll merge that group. So now I have the line work with all the adjustments that I made on it. Okay, so what you do is you select the scanned line work, the flattened one, the one that's merged with your adjustments. You click on channel, and at the bottom of that channel tab is this thing right here. It's like a circle that's all like marching ants looking thing. So you click on that and it selects all the white parts on the image. So then I go back to layers, create a new layer, inverse the selection. So now you can see right here, it's just the black parts. Then I'll just simply fill it in with black, right? So that's it. That's how I prepare it. The reason why I do it this way is that if you create a new layer on top of this line work and then turn that into a clipping mask, you can do things like colorizing your line work, which is something that I do a fair bit, right? So let's say I want to make the line work red, and then boom, it's that easy, right? You can't really do that with a flattened line work that's not what's called a floating layer, right? So when I put a clipping mask here, you can see right there that all it's doing is it's filling in the entire thing because it's not isolating the line work from the background. It's literally just covering the entire thing. But if I put it on top of this line work that is technically a floating line work, boom, super easy. I use it all the time to make the background push further it back and you know, give it that faded look. So now that I'm finished scanning and cleaning up the line work, I've uploaded it. I've uploaded it for Becca to begin flatting. I've been debating whether I should try to ink the next page, but I think what I'm gonna do instead is I want to develop a bit of a rhythm and rough in, pencil in the next few pages, try to essentially rough out the entire next scene. I prefer to do things that way. I prefer to just focus on one element at a time, you know, pencil an entire sequence before I start inking it. And then I typically like to, I typically don't color the book until I'm finished inking the entire thing. But yesterday, I don't know, I just felt like inking it. You know, it was a pretty easy page to pencil. It's a splash page, and I've missed, you know, I've missed holding my brushes and getting my hands dirty, because previously I've just been coloring for the last little while. So yeah, I mean, you know, the reason why I want to focus more on roughing out the rest of the sequence is I want to try to develop a bit of a rhythm. I know it's a bit difficult to say that because it's Friday and it's the end of the week, but you know, that mythical flow state that every creator is talking about, it doesn't come by accident. You know, I'll get more into that on Monday. You guys got what you needed. You got the lesson, I guess, the tutorial on how to clean up and scan your artwork in this fairly unconventional but hopefully informational way. But yeah, I think I'm gonna jump in and do some more pencilings, but I don't think I'm gonna film that part because I am running out of room on my SD card. So I'm gonna have to kick you guys out and go enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to show support for Peter and I's work, please consider pre-ordering the Rocketfellers Volume 1, which will be available at your local retailers on September 10th, but you can pre-order it now. I'm going to pop the information down below. Thanks for watching.